Thank you for getting so into it. I have on my personal list. And the only reason why he's this low is, unfortunately, he has fallen off greatly in the last 20 years as a singer for reasons unknown. I don't know if it's physical, mental. I don't know. I'm not a singer. I don't know. I'm not a musician. But the drop off has sadly been unbelievable to the point that, who knows what's going on now. We'll leave it at that in terms of the live stage. But a guy that I always loved his voice, and I would be lying if I didn't put him on this list, because I've talked about him being one of my all-time favorite singers forever, is Paul Stanley. So taking whatever nonsense is out there out of the equation, I would never deny and never have denied the influence and impact that Kiss has had on me from day one, my gateway band into rock music really in a big way. And his voice was always one of my favorites in its day. Gritty, powerful, attitude, everything. And, he went through a lot of evolutions with his voice. If you, Paul's big line lately, if you ask him about his voice, where he admits, by the way, that to his credit, he admits it's not anything close to what it once was. And there's no shame in that. There's shame if it's not real, what you're doing, but that's another story. But there's no shame in people dropping off vocally as they get older. That's more the norm than not. But he often has been saying, well, if you want to hear me sing like I sang on Alive, buy Alive. He's used that in multiple interviews about his voice. And what's interesting about that to me is, although I love his voice on Alive, that's only one sort of segment of what he can do vocally. When you listen to Kiss and as they evolved and went forward, whether it be a few years later making pop records with Dynasty and Unmasked, and then going into the 80s where he really had to compete with much younger people and tried to sing much higher and much more powerfully. A lot of times he did it to great effect. The Kiss album Crazy Nights, which was produced by Ron Nevison, who's known for getting great vocal performances out of singers. That album, now Nevison said when he was on the show with me that he felt Paul pushed it too much and tried to go above his register in how high he sang on that record. But there's some great vocal performances on that record. There's a confidence, there's a power, there's a quality to his voice. So throughout the 80s, with stuff like Lick It Up and Heaven's on Fire and Tears Are Falling and that whole period, and even right through the Psycho Circus record, which is an often maligned record, I like a lot of things on that record. There's songs on that record like Dreamin' and the title track, and his voice is tremendous. So what's that, 96, 97 that record came out, 96? Well, that's 25 years ago. So yeah, so it's been been about 20 years since there's been this sort of gradual fall off, but the bulk of what he did vocally was great, filled with a presence, an attitude, a power. And one more thing before I move on, you want to hear a tremendous vocal performance and one of the great sort of off the radar Kiss records. It's not really a Kiss record ever. Paul Stanley's 1978 solo album is unbelievable. Unbelievable. I put it right there, right there neck and neck with Aces of those 4 solo records. And you listen to stuff like Tonight You Belong to Me, or if you want a ballad, Ain't Quite Right, or the closing track, Goodbye, the power in those vocals. Just a tremendous voice, at that time, and super hugely important to me and super huge important band to me, as so many know. So Paul Stanley at 5 for me. And number 4,